I played a lot of remakes and remasters this year, from the new Saints Row, the third remake or remaster or whatever it was called. Turns out Saints Row, the third, is not as good as I thought it was. And I've also played the two remasters, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and obviously Mafia Definitive Edition. I've played a lot of different games this year. I've also played original, new IP, new video games this year as well. Persona 5 Royale, and Ghost of Tsushima, and The Last of Us Part 2, and Doom Eternal, and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I've played a lot of different video games this year, ranging from just kind of remakes and remasters to new IPs, and I thought about does making a remake and a remaster of a video game in an established series, does that take away from these new games, these new IPs? If, for example, a Mafia 3 or Mafia Definitive Edition gets made, does that then kind of kneecap and handcuff a developer from making, another game within the series, like a Mafia 4, for example? And yes, I know they made a Mafia 3 and it wasn't very good, but still, it's does it stop them from trying new things? Is the question. Does making a remaster and a remake stop the developer from doing and trying new things? And the answer is probably yes and no. I don't think, for example, id Software is going to make a remaster for the original Doom, right? They just made Doom Eternal, and Doom Eternal and the new Doom game, the 2016 game, were kind of reinterpretations of those older games. Does making a Persona 3 remaster, does that take away from Persona 5 Royale? Yeah, they Atlas isn't as big as other developers, and they don't have the same resources as, for example, in id Software, where their publisher is Bethesda, but now it's kind of Microsoft now. They don't have the same resources, and Naughty Dog works with Sony, and so does Insomniac Games, so maybe they'll be able to do something with Infamous and the in Crash Bandicoot. And as a matter of fact, Crash Bandicoot has a new entry within the game. It's Crash Bandicoot 4. It just came out this year, I think this month in October or late September. For me, it's weird because it's yes and no, and it kind of depends on certain developers. It depends on the resources of the developers. It depends on the size of the developer. It depends on, will the game ultimately make money? And, if you're not going to make money in this industry, if you're a major corporation and a publisher / developer, why are you doing it? But it kind of also started, but this idea that, remakes and remasters take away from the ability of the developer to create new IPs and projects is when I was thinking about, started for me when I was thinking about Cyberpunk 2077. It's been a known fact that people have wanted a Witcher 1 or a Witcher 2 remake / remaster for years upon years, ever since The Witcher 3 came out. And those two games are large games, especially The Witcher 2. And it kind of puts CD Projekt Red in a shady spot, in a tricky spot, where it's it takes them forever to make a video game. One video game. They've made, I think, 4 or 5 video games, if you want to include the new Gwent game that they came out, that's a card-playing game. In that mix, if you don't want to include that game, they've made 4 games in the last 20 years. That's 5. That's an average of 5 years per video game, right? And they were working on their more recent video game, Cyberpunk 2077, as the development of The Witcher 3 kind of took over and took place. And it's taken 5 years for Cyberpunk 2077 to come out after The Witcher 3, and I think The Witcher 3 was made 5 years after The Witcher 2, and so on and so forth. It takes a very long time for that developer to make a game. So they have to prioritize. They kind of have to move forward and move on and say, hey, if you want to play The Witcher 2, there's some really, really great mods that I think use parts of the Witcher 3 engine or parts of the assets in The Witcher 3 and put them in The Witcher 2. It's insane what people can do nowadays with adding remakes and remasters, or with modding these past games to look, not past, but these previous games within these entries to make them look and play better. It's just an open-ended question that I still don't have an open-ended answer to. I was kind of gonna come into this video and complain oh man, remasters and remakes, they take away from new video games and and it's well, that's not necessarily the answer. The answer is a lot more nuanced than that. The answer is a lot more complex than that. And the answer is a lot more detailed than that. It kind of sucks that there's certain video games that won't have definitive additional additions to them But at the same token, it's kind of like, you know, like there's new games out. Like Cyberpunk's coming out in a month. Like Crash Bandicoot 4 came out like a couple of weeks ago, and you know, like Tony Hawk and Doom Eternal came out this year. So it's like, you know, there's a yin and a yang to it. There's a balance to it. There's, you know, a dichotomy to it. And I don't know. I guess I learned something today. Hopefully you did as well, because I don't really have a plan for this video. Remember, I'm trying to wing it because I don't know what I'm doing right now. Just kind of speaking extemporaneously. This has been 24. Remember to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe for more. Until my next video, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.